Here's the thing. So 2001 is a goddamn classic. No doubt
Oh,
about
yes.
it.
Yes,
I'd have to say that. The mere fact we're speaking about it, that means I'm making redundant analytical statement here, right? The thing is, though, it's one of those movies that had to, when they talk about unfilmable, the book is unfilmable.
Yeah.
Right. This was one of those. A lot of people didn't really get what you had to do with it. They didn't get, a lot of people at the time. This is before Star Wars. So I would argue that in film culture, sci-fi never really became mainstream until Star Wars. Right. A lot of people didn't have a working, intuitive concept for space or how that works or the idea. And it's actually shocking how, Kubrick just had such a working understanding of this. So much so that there's a multitude of running conspiracy theories that Kubrick has relation to NASA, and it's implied that he was the one who filmed the moon landing.
Oh,
so
shit.
he is intuited in part of a lot of moon landing conspiracy theories, which is bullshit. Most moon landing, almost all is bullshit, I would argue. Virtually all.
Yeah.
You could find probably a couple of things that, okay, they kind of do this maybe, but it wasn't like, anything close to what you making it out to be. But what ended up happening is that it's implied that he did have lenses from NASA. So what I think is true. That might be true. I'm not sure. But I think it's probably, it's having no way to verify. I don't know if somebody could correct me and tell me, oh, you're talking bullshit. But from what I understand, he had some connection to NASA in working. But in the case of 2001, it's, Arthur C. Clarke.
Well, as you mentioned his name, right? Because I know you are, a sci-fi literature nerd, right? So what is your thoughts? Okay, so I'm saying this because for one thing, I am a huge Stanley Kubrick fan. For those who don't know, I think he is the GOD, the greatest director of all time, in my opinion, right? So I do have the Kubrick box set.
No problem.
Which also has the Stanley Kubrick A Life in Pictures, which is the movie the documentary came out in 2001, which ironically, right, which was 2 years after his death. That was right before the release of his final film, Eyes Wide Shut.
Right.
It was narrated by Tom Cruise, who also starred in Eyes Wide Shut. And there was an interview with Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah.
And there was a moment where he was talking about the concept, or one of the concepts he had in mind for 2001, which was for every human being, there's like X amount of ghosts, and eventually there's like a planet for us, or it could reach a level. So he goes these real highfalutin kind of stuff there. So what is your thoughts on him as a writer?
No, right. So Clarke is opposed. Okay, here's the thing. I gotta straight up say it. This is something I know I'm knocking my fellow sci-fi writers down a little peg, but a lot of sci-fi authors can't write. They can't write well. And what I mean by that?
Why? Too much concepts and
no. The problem is that they don't know how. Here's the problem. Sci-fi is a weird space in the sense that you need an engineering brain to solve the problem, right? So you're kind of pushed to make sense of something if it have to be quote unquote plausible or workable.
Okay.
But from what I understand, Stanley Kubrick was heavily influential in the invention or the advent of what we call the satellite in today's world, right? The idea of how you're going to use satellites to communicate. Because originally, and again, this is the history as I remember it, somebody could please correct me and call me on my bullshit if I'm talking it, but if I remember correctly, the original idea to communicate across the planet was towers, right? Just big towers. Like how we have a cell tower nowadays.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of big towers to bounce around stuff, and that's how it's going to be. And then, if anything, you could use the ionosphere to send radio waves, because stuff used to bounce off the ionosphere if it is strong in a particular area. But it wasn't that reliable. The ionosphere bounces around a little bit. That's just the quick science. And what he said, okay, why can't we can't simulate the ionosphere? That was the original idea of the satellite.
Oh.
And that pushed the premise of the space race as we understood it.
Right.
Right? Because the first big thing was the Sputnik and the Russians, and they thought, a lot of it was fueled by the Cold War and whatnot, right?
Right. And what I would say is at the height of that race, that's where Kubrick collaborated with Arthur C. Clarke for the show.
And so Clarke, what he does quite well, and one of the modern sci-fi authors I really like does that as well with respect to, which is he took the engineering route, or at least the conceptual engineering route, to solving problems. And you saw that with 2001: A Space Odyssey. Everything is engineering. It's just. And he has a famous, I think he's the one who coined it, what he called Clarke's third law. And he has a bunch of other laws, I forget the other laws. But Clarke's third law is the most popular. Which basically says any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. That is the argument. So anytime you see something in sci-fi and it's too out there and it's kind of weird, you just say, okay, it advanced so much that we don't understand it. This recent movie kind of did that. Annihilation. Annihilation it had a sort of magic-y stuff, right? It felt like magic.
Yeah.
But really what it was, probably just super advanced technology that we just don't get. Right? Whatever it is. It's this thing that manipulating biology and physics and thing on all levels.
Right.
You're not sure what it is, right? But it don't matter. It's not magic though.
Right.
That's the important point. It's just a denial of what we call magic in all ways, shape or form. Okay. It's just sufficiently advanced. And he could apply it to anything. You apply it to God, you apply it to angels. It's all tech. Maybe.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. And it doesn't matter. Right? Even the creation of the universe itself could be tech.
Right.
Whatever that means, right? And what Clarke did, he shaped the paradigm of how a lot of sci-fi follows from that, unfortunately. Which I would say is, I say it unfortunately because I'm in that trap, but it's really hard to write sci-fi without referencing science. Right? Gone are the days where it's
science fiction, so...
Right.
You know.
But it's not a fiction of science. That's the important part. That's the important part.
That.
You can't bullshit.
Yeah.
A lot of fans demand you not bullshit them.
Yeah.
Right? You have to say, no, this is legit science. This is how it works. And even if you don't get it, you still at least have to make sense of it. Star Trek does this all the time. Right?
Yeah.
All the time. Right? Because it's possible to move faster than light in this way? Well, kind of, maybe. But then some guy will come later and say, no, it could work. We just need this amount of energy. And so you accept this fictional part and you don't accept that fictional part. And yeah, this movie does such a good job of getting you to accept this quote unquote fiction. The movie starts with that shit.
Yeah.
It starts with this really, really well done series of shots involving some apes.
Yes, the Dawn of Man. I love that sequence. I'll talk about that in a bit.
And then I remember the first time I saw this on TV. I was a big sci-fi nerd, right? And I remember TV6 was showing Space 2001.
I was about to mention that. That was the first time I saw 2001.
So I was always a nerd amongst my friends. Type now, they know I like Star Trek, all that shit. And they was like, "Hey boy, Ricardo, boy, you thought the show you might like." It's like the show real weird, boy. And
that's always
they started, but the movie
weird.
now started. That's with the ape sequence, and then they had this shot with the bone, classic shot.
Yeah,
and then
the match cut.
Right. And then it just snap straight into the space station,
which I love.
Fantastic, simple shot. And then you get into the idea of the monoliths, right? These black bars, and the purpose of the monoliths is to
which I want to address later on too.
Right, no problem. Then they get into the aspect of machine life and human life.
Yes.
Now the projection, this really, really somber projection of what the future is and what life will be like in 2001.
Yeah, emphasis on somber, which I will also talk about.
And they get into that aspect of, they get into this whole, I don't like to use it, but the term the yin-yang thing, where man more like machine than the machine. And then the machine making decisions because it's smarter, but only because man fucking up. And it's like, wait, the machine better in this situation because it actually making the right decisions.
Yes,
yes. And it gets into that, and it's like, oh, okay, this gets into the mechanical mind of the man, and the only one who seems to have a quote unquote soul is the machine.
Yes.
And they get into that. World building, simply fantastic. A lot of people didn't get that you could rotate a space station and that'll be gravity.
Yeah.
As a kid, I didn't get that at all. I was like, wait, when you swing, it's like when you swing around a yo-yo or something. Oh shit, that's the same idea. Okay. And this long before I knew what centrifugal and centripetal force was. All right, clever. Then they get into the Star Child stuff and the ending.
Yeah. That's not what they talk about.
That's the weirdness, right?
Yeah.
Then they get into, we got on the moon and it had a second monolith. It's like, oh shit, there's somebody waiting for us and helping us out. Then they follow up from the sequels of 2010.
Yeah, the year we made contact, which I have seen, but I don't remember a single thing about it.
Yeah.
I was wondering if I should watch it.
It's not that good.
I was
you don't need to.
Yeah.
And then they have the book. I don't think they ever made a movie out of it, but they made the book 2001. This is when.
Oh really?
Yeah. This is when they go really, really far, and you really get to see what where Clarke carries the argument, its logical conclusions. Clarke himself had a handful of little troublesome history in his own life. But most notably, he was accused of pedophilia.
What?
Yeah, it's kind of fucked up. So when he was supposed to be knighted, because he's still artist.
Yeah, he is,
right?
sir, yes.
Right, when he was about to be knighted, that came up. And the idea was, okay, check, because he went to Sri Lanka, and he's living in Sri Lanka for the rest of his life, and it's implied he used to like Sri Lankan boys, and that was a whole conspiracy theory about him, and he's accused of this, and yeah, they check it out.
That would kind of explain that sort of Buddhist statue that was behind him in the interview.
He lives here. He lived in, I think, if I remember correctly, he lived in Sri Lanka for a whole chunk of his life, his latter life, in his ending years.
Okay.
But he was accused of that. He was more or less cleared as far as I know. So it was just, anybody who raised it is BS, kind of bullshitting, and just, drudging up bullshit.
Right.
From what I understand. As far as I know, that stuff will, if it would have come out, it would have come out blind or full and it was largely debunked for the most part. I mean, again, these things, you know, you could never really suss it out entirely, unfortunately. But yeah, the idea that he was any kind of pedophile or anything like that is I think is not true. It's just total bullshit. What else? Kubrick himself, you know, what he's known for. Thousands of takes.
Yeah, he's a taskmaster.
Yeah,
taskmaster.
Mr. Take Man.
Yeah. Even in the documentary himself, Douglas Trumbull, who worked on the visual effects, and which, by the way, that's the only Academy Award that movie ever won, rightfully so. He was saying that, you know, Kubrick pressured him on to just do all these things because they would always come with ideas like, how do we represent this? How do we this? How do we do this? How do we do that? Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kubrick pushed himself. He pushed his cast. He pushed his crew. And Douglas come out of it, you basically say, I would like never work on a film again. Yeah. Look at all the shit I went through.
Yeah, in the case of, that's a problem. And a person like Kubrick can't exist anymore, I'll admit, in today's world. No way. But
some people have tried to be Kubrick.
Nope.
Christopher Nolan tried to be Kubrick with Interstellar. He tried to, but nah.
Nolan messed up with Interstellar because it's just that last sequence that just made no goddamn sense and didn't work at all.
I felt personally he just had to kind of read and spell everything. Like he could have ended ambiguous.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, no, this is not a Hollywood movie. You have to explain your shit.
That's my problem.
We don't get ticket sales.
He did it halfway in the worst way, which was we getting into Interstellar, but Interstellar halfway explained the problem. It should either just be entirely visual. Like, we don't know what's going on. Because it's 5-dimensional space, he can't make sense of what's going on, but he just had to...
Yeah, instead of talking, oh, wow, this is the 5th dimension. This is what
this is. That killed that joke.
That is what this is.
That killed that. Yeah, that really
stop telling us.
Either that or explain it properly.
Yeah.
But they give this half explanation nonsense, and he say, well, somehow we help ourselves. Like, wait, how you know that? How you know? Whatever.
I know, right.
Whatever.
Anyway, move along.
Point is, in case of Kubrick does the... In the final sequence, he do a lot of interpretation.
Yes.
And it's a lot of visual language. And that's what say we want to have a Kubrick. He's really fucking good at that. The approach of this thinking about what it is the logical conclusion of this could be, even if you don't understand it.
Yeah.
And then, so what he does quite well is getting it to be out there, but then go back to the basics, which was Star Child.
Yes.
I think Star Child is a cool fucking idea. Right,
I think so too.
Yeah, it's a cool.
And I have my interpretation on what it means just based over the film, but
and I don't get sucked into subtext too much. I just wanted to see, okay, does this make sense world building wise, right? And yeah, that makes sense. It's something that is both like insane, but at the same time it has an intuition to it. It's like, oh right, everything restart though. It's a kind of reset. It's a kind of you know. Cyclical, growing cyclicality, as they say. And if you want to look at it like that, that's how I saw it at the time. As a kid, still see it like that now. I don't know. It's just this movie it really, when they really say transcendent, it's one of those. I mean, it's one of those movies I do, and it's a movie I don't really like go out of my way to defend or watch over. I don't think I'm not the biggest fan of the film, but I understand its importance and significance. Frankly.
Of course, yeah.
However, one movie that replicated in all the worst ways and fucked things up. But even though it's not the worst movie ever, was the first Star Trek film, right? Replicated 2001 in all the worst ways. Didn't understand how to take long takes. Didn't understand its use of grand shots. That's like bad aping. Ironically, it's aping in the worst ways. Yeah, you know how to cargo call 2001. That's the problem.
Right.
Anyway, that's my last take on that.
Okay.
Why these movies work so well.
Anyway. So before I get into my thoughts and my little notes, because I rewatched the film, because I'm a Kubrick fan and all that kind of stuff. Just a little backstory on 2001, right? So of course this is right after this came out in 1968. So this was roughly 4 years after the release of another popular film of his, and one of my personal favorites, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Both movies took a good while for me to grow on, especially Dr. Strangelove, because I remember seeing it and not really finding it that funny.
Right.
Like, it's a dark comedy, it's a black comedy, yes, but I find it played itself too serious.
Right.
But then the more I watch it, I realize, okay, well, this is like real silly when you think about it,
right?
But it's in an absurdly dark way, and I was like, oh, now I get it.
Right.
Okay. So, with this movie here, just with Kubrick himself, because he took a long while to really establish himself as a filmmaker, right? He really got his big break with Spartacus in 1960 with Kirk Douglas, because like right there, people were like, okay, this kid from Brooklyn has talent. This man has ideas. Of course, he got into a controversial snag with Lolita, which is one of my least favorite Kubrick films, but I do see how great it is in my opinion. Well, this one not one of my personal favorites.
Lolita is surprising. Like not obviously ignoring the obvious subject matter. Lolita itself, from what I understand, was this has a little side issue. It itself was plagiarized. From what I understand, the book.
Right.
The book of largely plagiarized a good chunk of the book. You could find a lot of like evidence for that now, but that should has only come out way later. About 70 years later, where it is when the book was written.
Right.
Lolita, the original doesn't really work like that. I remember they made the remake.
Yeah, which I skipped.
It sucked.
Of course it sucked.
I remember watching it at the time, and I was like, wait, this was kind of controversial and real weird and freaky.
No, but I thought those guys go for like a real rated R kind of sex vibe.
It had its moments. It was weird because I know they had to. The girl was actually underage, so they had to shoot around that shit. I was like, yeah, well, they real played with fire with this too.
Yeah,
the final sequence of the film was really fucked up, where basically we got a penis shot, which was
that's just what we needed.
But I thought it was terrible. Like at the time, I remember watching it, it was more shock value more than anything.
Yeah,
but it doesn't work. A lot of it doesn't work.
Right. So with Dr. Strangelove now, this was where people were like, okay, Kubrick is on to some dread. Kubrick is like a special director. He's like one of the directors that shows up like every 10 years or so. There's something about this guy here.
Yeah.
Just for the use of Till We Meet Again from Vera Lynn. Just the use of that song in both the opening and the final sequence. Just amazing. And just the dark comedy of that movie, right? So at this time, Kubrick was like well established. He could just pick any project, right? And people will support it because they know he's the shit basically, right? So with this one here, and I would say this right now, this is probably the most ambitious movie he ever made in his life, right?
Right.
He got the heavy hitters. I mean, he got Arthur C. Clarke involved. He got he worked with. He got assistance from NASA, all that jazz, right?
Right.
So when the movie came out, the first screening was at this theater called the Uptown Theater, right? Now, supposedly, according to Kubrick himself, that first screening had roughly 241 walkouts. But
wow,
people just did not understand this movie. They didn't give a shit about it. They just said, "Fuck this,
yeah.
Go on."
Wow.
Right? And this real, I mean, of course, this pissed off Stanley, right?
Right, of course, right.
Pissed him off, right? But then later on, something weird happened. This DJ was talking about, well, hey man, you need to check out this movie, man. It's like, so it become like this kind of counterculture.
Right.
Kind of.
That's what I like about film too, is that film, as I always make the point, you have science. Yes, science first. There's be the cutting edge idea.
Yeah.
Then some kind of artist or filmmaker just catch it, and then that will delineate towards popular culture.
Yeah.
So when a lot of the shit that going on, the thing is like is a lot of new information about planetary structure, galaxies. The nature of the universe. That's around the time when people started arguing, oh shit, the universe had an origin. Big Bang.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. By the way, that's a big talking point that's counter culture. Because now, this was a really fascinating idea, because now what ended up happening is that you had people who was, back in the old arguing in academia, you had people who was like, no, the universe is infinite and forever. And that was the non-religious position.
Yeah.
And then it's like, no, the universe had a start, but very old. Like, oh shit, that changed everything. It's like, oh well, God make it like this, and it had a whole play out back and forth, and it's right. And go ahead now.
Right. Well, great points here. But when the movie came out, just like his other films, because that's something about Kubrick, whether it's so funny about his movies is that when they first come out, people just be divided by it, right? So like with Dr. Strangelove, people find, well, you can't be taking the Cold War and making fun of it. What the hell, you know what I mean?
Right.
But other people will be like, okay, this is downright funny. I love this, right? And then over the years, you realize, oh shit, this is a great movie. So same here with this movie. People were split by it. Actually, legendary critic Pauline Kael called it the biggest amateur movie of them all, Dread. I was like, what the fuck can you call that?
Yeah, no,
what?
Pauline Kael is somebody who used to rip shit apart, but for good reason. She's a very good critic.
Of course. One of the greatest.
Yeah, but she's a call things for, because what she did, Kubrick was representative of what she hated, which was the whole what we call auteur theory, right?
Yes.
He was the Mr. Auteur himself. He was like the Mr. Auteur. And I'll admit it. It is a very auteur theory, where in retrospect is more about vision, not about you on your own and getting credit for it.
Yes.
I think I still generally defend the idea of the auteur. But I can understand where she's coming from. When she still say basically it's the little boys club now, the man boy society essentially now.
Yeah.
And this is a boy thing. Like, you don't think of female authors. You don't think of that. I mean, it exists. if you would acknowledge it.
Yeah.
But we don't think of the idea of the female author. But yeah, go ahead.
Right. So just my personal history with the movie here, quick, right? Just like you, I saw it on TV6. That's a local station we have down here.
Yeah.
I'm still surprised to this day that they would actually show a movie like this.
That's the thing. It always has people in TV6. Like, again, I suspect it's people who we know as in film today. It's just old film people who just say, look, see, you got to show this movie, you know.
Yeah.
And
we can show it on a holiday, like on a Good Friday,
and
so with nobody home.
People who have a good sense of film in this country who still are wrong. I ain't going to call no names, but specific people who probably professors and teachers and so on.
Yeah.
So they say, look, we need to drop a high bad movie on these.
Yeah,
these
let me just show this. So I watched it there.
Or the hoi polloi.
Yeah, so I watched it. Of course, I didn't understand it, but I was amazed by the visuals. I love the music. I love the editing, which I'll get into as well, right? And then I watched it again on, I believe it was either on TCM or it was around the time when that Stanley Kubrick A Life in Pictures movie came out in 2001 on Cinemax.
Right.
Because that was the first, because there was like a whole, like it was a Tuesday evening and they just had a whole marathon of his movies, right?
Right.
And the last film that they show was A Clockwork Orange. And like I said in my review of that, which I still say is the greatest movie of all time.
Right.
That was the first time I ever saw that movie, right?
Right.
So I think it was afterwards I saw it. I think it was on TCM. So they had this pre-credit sequence, which was just silent, like just black. It wasn't silent, sorry, but he was hearing a piece of music being played, and then the intro starts up, right? And then they also had that intermission in between where the same music plays, and that music actually is what they played during the famous Stargate sequence, which I'll talk about just now, right? Yeah. I remember that second time I was like, okay, this is something, I'm getting it now. And then the more I watch it now, the more I started to really love the film. And now, I think it's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's admittedly is one of those shows you could say, yeah, of course it's a masterpiece. I mean, look at the visuals, look at the direction, all that kind of stuff. It's like an easy pick now.
Yeah, exactly. No, people is bullshit after the fact because what is end up happening is that you really don't get to approach what it is you're supposed to look for.
That's it.
And that's the thing with films like that. Films, that's I always say, the problem with film is that you see the idea of trying to make film a science is that you're going to lose something. Film's supposed to operate more like alchemy than chemistry.
Ooh.
That's why I totally believe that. As in, it need to be accidental. It need to be random. They need to have it be more chaotic. One of these, look, I love the MCU films. I love a lot of modern Hollywood. I do genuinely defend a lot of that shit, but they have a dark undertone to it.
Yeah.
Which is the similar, everything flattening itself out. It's being too similar, not shaking up the thing. Anything that truly kind of shake up you when you think about it, not that subversive.
Yeah.
And it's art. It needs to be subversive.
That's the thing. Well, good thing that you mentioned art, because as I started to grow up now, as I started to learn more about films and the possibility of films, right?
Right.
That's where I started to appreciate the movie more. I saw it more of an art film,
Yeah.
But not a pretentious, highfalutin
one,
but more like, I have an idea. This is my canvas. I'm putting it out there.
Yeah.
You could interpret it however you want to, but that's the point of it. It's an experience. It's not meant to more or less tell you every single thing. You have to watch it and you get what it is you get out of it. That's all there is to it. And I thought that was brave though. Like I love films that could actually do that and just be so much more than that. You know what I mean? So I mean, for right off the bat, this movie is just a milestone. It's just so groundbreaking in terms of just the visuals, the use of music, which I'll talk about as well. Just everything about it, even from a direct editing perspective.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk just briefly about the certain segments of it, because it is segmented, right? So the Dawn of Man sequence, right? Just the movie not even going into space yet and showing you, okay, this is where man started from, right? One thing that caught me, that I picked up on when I watched it recently, is the use of cross dissolves, and there are lots of cross dissolves used in this sequence.
By the way, that is where all of my editing skills come from. Straight up cross dissolve. I love a cross dissolve.
Sorry, that cross dissolves. My bad.
What?
Dip to blacks.
Oh no, okay.
Yeah, dip to black. Right?
I use a lot of those.
Yeah. So, but to me, it's not like how I saw it. It was more like every shot, like every time it dips to black, it's always like, all right, folks. Take note of what happened. Right, exactly. There's a point to this. Yeah. Perfect example, like when you see the apes and you see how the community are. There's one shot where a tiger attacks and then it just dips to black, and then the following scene is them like hiding in this cave and you're hearing the tiger growling behind, and then dips to black again. So it's showing how their lives is, which
Yeah.
is okay. It's fair and all that kind of stuff. They have rival tribes attacking them and stuff, but they can't. No, sorry, they don't really attack. They just shout at each other, and then the monolith appears.
Yeah.
And the music that they use here, boy, which was, I read it out here, right? The Requiem for Soprano, Mezzo Soprano, 2 mixed choirs and orchestra, performed by Gregory Ligeti.
Right.
Probably one of the most haunting ass things I've heard ever in a movie, right? And one thing that I always liked about it, like one thing I always noticed is that it always ends with a shot where it's looking up at the sky and you're seeing the sun and you're seeing the moon behind it.
Yeah.
So it's that whole theme of alignment which you see in the third act, which I'll get into, right? And then afterwards, once that monolith shows, something happens. Some evolution takes place.
Yeah,
and that is where one of the apes discovers this bone.
Yeah.
You know, from one of the, I think it's a tapir or whatever it is that dies, right? So he realizes, oh shit, if I hit this thing, okay, I could do that. And now I can use this to hunt. It's like this big revelation.
You're right, the origin of consciousness, as we understand.
Right.
As the implication.
And then, of course, they use that famous song, also Sprak Zarathustra.
Yeah. That's Sprak, yeah.
Yeah. If I pronounce it wrong, forgive me, right? AKA the Ric Flair song.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just like every time it's played, it's just so majestic, but something about that just hit your heart, but it's something so powerful. It's just like, yes, you know what I mean, when he's hitting that thing, which is a famous shot. But in true Kubrick fashion, what I like is that he shows the flip side to it. And this was always a theme with his movies, right? Where it's always about the dark side of man. You know, why do we... There's always this darkness inside of us. So what is it? He always tries to explore it. So yes, now I have this bone, and now I can use this to hunt, and now we can eat and stuff. But hey, here's the rival tribe show up now.
Right. Licks.
And you wanna come on, you wanna come to my watering hole? Oh no, fuck that shit. I'll kick your ass. Pop, 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 pop. There's even one shot where one of them grab the bone and legit just beat the shit out of one of them on the ground. Like, pop, 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 pop. And I was thinking about that shot from Full Metal Jacket where you had Vincent D'Onofrio's character where he was tied up to the bed and then they just hit him with the soaps and stuff. That same kind of shot, man. Like how torturous that felt.
Yeah.
So the second sequence though, well yes, and just for general, I love the framing of the shots. I love the cinematography here.
Yeah.
I love the editing. It just works though. But you know, they do set up that whole theme of good and evil, you know, creation and destruction, right? So right after that famous match cut, and we get this nice little ballet stuff of the space stations. You know, they play the Danube. Yeah, love that. Very operatic. Very ballet-like, right?
Yeah.
I love the interior shots where you're seeing characters more or less walking in space.
There's another thing about it. Like,
gravity,
another thing with it is that the stuff that we consider cliched now, this is one of those that really start again. Does speak Zarathustra. You see that in all kind of bullshit jokes and comedies.
Of course, yeah.
But no, but then it's like, that was kind of cutting it. Should like match that up too.
Yes. And that's another thing that I love about this movie is how integral music was. Because before that, music was just like, just in the background there, just there to add to a scene. But this one, with this movie here, music was an integral part of the movie.
Right.
Like, you take the music out of this movie and there is no 2001.
Right.
It doesn't exist. This movie just adds so much. It just heightens everything to a certain level, right? One thing that I love about the Blue Danube scene, is the idea of scalability. Just how big and majestic and immense these space stations are.
Yeah.
You know, there's one shot where one of the ships is like landing and just showing this like in real time.
Right,
and just seeing how big everything looks and everything. I love that.
Difference, again, as I always comment on knocking Star Trek the Motion Picture for that, is that this movie actually served a purpose visually, while Star Trek the Motion Picture did not. That is kind of the running joke with it. I mean, a lot of people still defend Star Trek the Motion Picture, but you can see why it is how to use visual language. Even if you have a long take and it's quote-unquote slow and boring, it is giving you information.
Yes, and you know, some people might argue like those scenes itself are slow and boring, but to me, it serves a purpose. It's really the height of technology at that time, right? Looking at it now, I mean, it does have a kind of like, especially the interior shots have this kind of retro kind of look to it, especially the seats and stuff. But that's the time. I mean, it's the late 60s, you know. Clockwork Orange did the same thing, where some of the decor look kind of retro, but I mean, it's the time, right? What's interesting is that we are introduced to the character of Haywood Floyd.
Yes.
And we assume that he is the main protagonist of the film, but actually, no, he is not.
Yeah.
I love the scene where he's talking to his daughter, who actually is Stanley's real life daughter,
Right.
like when she was young. Because like he's talking to her over like this video phone, whatever it is, right? And she's responding, but like this part is like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Playing." You know what I mean? Like it's her birthday basically,
Yeah.
right? So he's in space, she's over there, and instantly you see that disconnect between the two of them.
Yeah.
Like he's in this rotated space station. She's on Earth, you know, having a birthday, but her dad isn't there, right? And in true Kubrick irony, I love where he says, "So what would you like for your birthday?" A telephone.
Right.
Just so subtle there, but I just love how brilliant that is, right? So right there, oh yes, and shout out to Panam. Yeah, a lot of Panam images.
Panam was a thing, yeah.
Right. So while he is in that station, he learns about this monolith. The same monolith shows up in the planet Clavius. I think that's what you call it, right? So he now goes on this expedition.
Right. So what happens is that if I remember correctly, they found the second monolith essentially.
Yeah.
So Earth had one, and then the Moon has another one. And that's kind of the implication is that, oh well, you reach a certain point,
Yes.
you had to get to this point to reference. Yeah.
Before I forget though, there are some creative like camera shots that they use. Like for one thing, they do use some rotating sets for some scenes. Like there's one scene where the flight attendant is doing a 360. So like she walks into like this rotating thing.
Yeah.
And then she goes to the right hand side and then walks around, does a 360 and goes into a compartment on the left hand side.
Rotating,
and to me, I still watch that to this day, like, how the fuck did they do this?
Yeah.
Like seriously, how they do that shit though? And then of course we get to the Clavius scene and the same music plays. And then but what was really interesting is when they started to take pictures, like, portrait shots of themselves in front of the monolith. That's where you hear this kind of ear-piercing sound, and then it just cuts to the next shot, which is the Jupiter mission, right?
Right.
And here is where the story really begins, where we see the space station Discovery 1. Of course, and this is right at the 54-minute marker, so I'm like, wow, okay, this is where we go. This has one of the best songs, probably my favorite musical composition of all in this movie, and that is forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, the Guyane Ballet Suite, Adiago. Right. This is my personal favorite. I love it. I mean, it's beautiful, everything so gorgeous, but it has this real sad, melancholy vibe to it now. Right. And then when you go into the interiors, and it's basically 5 guys inside it. 5 guys and, of course, HAL 9000, which we'll talk about. Mm-hmm. So 3 of the 5 guys are in cryo sleep. And these 2 guys, David Bowman, who is played by Keir Dullea, who I believe will be appearing in Fahrenheit 451, the HBO version.
The new one with Michael B. Jordan and Michael Jordan.
Yeah, so they are the 2 guys there. But when you look at the interiors themselves, it feels like, especially with that sad violin music in the background, like they are lonely. They're up there by themselves. They have nobody really to talk to. Yeah. And this relationship between the 2, like they're working on this project together, but I don't see a camaraderie between the 2. It's just like, I work with you, whatever. Right. They seem distant, right? And the music best emphasizes that. Yeah. I love the shot where they explain it in the movie too, in the documentary, where David is running down what seems to be like this kind of like a Ferris wheel kind of thing, like the ship is revolving, and that section where he's running, it's like just him running and working out, right? It seems like he's just running up and around and around like that. I love that. And just the use of the music there was just so powerful to me. Right. I love the scene where Poole and Bowman are watching this BBC interview where they were interviewing HAL 9000 itself. Right, yeah. And I swear to God, it's friggin' tablets they were watching though. Like, holy shit. That was
the idea of the tablet here,
Yeah. I established right there that the 9000 computers are the most reliable ever made. Right. No 9000 has ever made a mistake or distorted information. That character of HAL 9000, though, to me, like many many film theorists will always say is probably the most complex representation of a machine. I totally agree too.
Right. It's the working prototypical AI. Like once you hear AI in a film, you think HAL, right? That's where you jump to, logically.
Yeah.
Why HAL worked quite well at the time is that you got into the whole, I don't know what to call it. I don't have a name for it, but I call it what you call Procrustean logic. Bad AI logic, which is it's right in almost every scenario once you program it properly.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. But
okay, so the way this system acts is because of the creator.
Exactly, and it's how well you make it. But and then if you work it with a big enough framework, it works perfectly. That's the problem.
Yeah,
that the universe is the biggest framework.
Right,
can't address everything, and then when it's time for it to really when you hit it with some weird problems, it'll fuck things up so royally that it's much worse than not having it at all.
Yeah.
And that's how they made this work. But in the context of the film, it serves that.
Yes.
But it's the AI, what I call the bad AI logic. So, it's a old joke that to understand the problem. It's always the fastest way to lose 8 pounds. The question is with a guillotine.
Right.
You chop your head off, right? That's a joke. But the point is, it both is a sound and valid position. It's just the context of losing weight. You need to make sure you have put that in the program. You can't just dump that in.
Right.
It's raw programming. It's just straight math equation.
Right.
And the film does a good job with addressing what this thing should or act like.
Mm-hmm.
When it's time for you to suss out, well, you get into the Clark's third law stuff, right? And you get into the AI stuff and the Asimov stuff, right? Where it's like, well, the last point is the thing that started it all is now the weakest link, which is the people.
Right.
And you start to get into that now. It's a lot of good sci-fi. Like, it's dated sci-fi bullshit now, in my opinion. Because people had real arguments about this, because we actually now starting to live in that world. But yeah, it's at the time important shit.
Yeah.
Important space to carry people at least.
Right. What was pretty interesting here is that in the interview, it suggested that, the HAL 9000 is incapable of emotional responses. But Bowman in the interview says that he really does believe he has them, right? I love the following scene where you see Frank Poole. And he's relaxing, right? But he has a similar moment to Haywood where Frank's parents is wishing him happy birthday. But the irony about it all is that it's a video message. It's not like a real-time talk.
Right.
So he just happened to just get this message like, oh, well, happy birthday, Frank, blah, 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 blah. Happy birthday to you. They sing it. And it's just sad that he can't connect with them.
Right.
Once again, the whole disconnecting. And another thing that, going back to just the flip side of things, yes, we have advanced technologically, but to the detriment of human interaction and contact, right?
Yeah.
So eventually with this section here, which is pretty much the most important part of this movie, the main focus of the movie here, right? So Hal is concerned about the Discovery 1's mission. He finds everything is so clandestine and secretive, and he has this kind of like, he's not sure about what's going on, and he expresses this to David. He talks to David a lot. It's just like, all right, I know everything was all kept hush-hush, but I have a feeling something's not right here.
Right.
I'm not sure why. Maybe I'm not supposed to be thinking like this because I'm a machine, but I can't help it, right?
Right.
And one thing, this is like for younger heads, you might get turned off by this, but I love how Kubrick was just like, here's what, right? This is an experience here. Even if I have to show you this sequence play out in real time and then running slow as molasses, you are going to sit through this. So the part where they have to repair the satellite in the ship, I believe it's a satellite or some feeling part.
A long thing.
And it's just this long thing with them going into the ship and you're hearing the breathing, and it just plays out like that, Dred. I'm like directors don't do this, Dred, because you'll be thinking about the audience and attention span.
Them days done.
Yeah, and I mean it's intentionally slow pace, but I love how it builds atmosphere. I mean it's space, damn it. I mean everything that happens is quick, right?
It's space big and
Come
slow.
on, the shocking part that this is where it actually leads to the intermission is where David and Frank are skeptical about Hal. They think something's up with him. And he read the lips to it. It's like, oh shit. And then of course Frank is killed, and this was something that kind of threw me off there. Like still to this day I find it's very jarring. Like, all right, is this survival of the fittest? This is why he kills off Frank? Or is it that he just kind of thinks, okay, is an equation. He is just the
right. So
that's,
that's
illogical thing. So let me just X him out.
That's the problem with the argument. Is that you don't know.
I find it shocking how he just kind of kills him, like just gets rid of his life support basically.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the whole point. Is that is the logical end of things in terms of justification. So,
and even worse though, when he kills the other three guys, he just cuts off the critical like functions, just boom, like. Yeah. Is that cold-blooded murder? Like,
well, no, pretty much. But that's the idea. The idea is just the raw utilitarian thinking of things. Like, all right, you guys have a potential to be your random.
Right.
And we have to just cut this randomness out of the equation, essentially.
Yeah, but my thing is, like, was he compelled to do this? Or,
but that's the whole point. Is the logical end of things. I'm not sure where the programming is or not. I mean, just try to think of why somebody would be justified to murder somebody. Mm-hmm. It's not because I need to murder somebody. Very few people will think like that. What it is, it's, oh, you're in the way of something.
Right.
And I need to justify why it is you're doing this or the other. Or you're a problem that I need to solve or address. Right? So most murder is just revenge.
Yes.
Or jealousy or something basic and bullshitty.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the same programming for Hal. It's just Hal is not a person who have blood and he don't have lust and jealousy or anything like that. But once you start getting to the goals of that, that's the idea. Again, slightly outdated idea, but at the time, this was kind of brilliant.
Yeah, it was. It's, like I say, still kind of shocking when you think about it, right? You think he would know better. What was pretty interesting, like I noticed this actually watching this film again, is David's reaction to it.
Yeah.
It's like Frank is floating in space. He's dying, right? Because he's not getting enough oxygen.
Yeah.
And David just seems to be like normal about it.
Nonplussed,
And that's what I was saying, like even when they are together, they're not close.
So that in itself throws things off in fascinating ways.
Yeah, he's like real cold about it, like almost inhuman, like robotic in a way. Yeah, that was weird, you know. And then of course Dave's vengeance on Hal, the famous shot. But even more interesting is because what Hal did, how he killed off those other three, those four guys now, and then David is pretty much pulling out his I believe his ram basically, his brain, right? And Hal is just like, Dave,
what are you doing?
I'm afraid.
Yeah, and you're going back.
What are you doing,
and
Dave?
And then
you feel sorry for the guy, though. But at the same time,
and then the big cutting point is when he went back to the Daisy song.
Yes, Dave.
Yeah, because that's the first thing he learns. It's like, oh, that kind of fucked up.
It's so sad when you hear it, though.
Again, what we learn about, because this is one of the big parts about modern society, is that we learn so much about the human brain and the nature of that and what that knowledge means. We in the age of where people are straight up saying, look, you may not have free will, and you may not. And it's like, wait, this shit that happened to Hal could easily happen to people, right? How much times do you hear when a person get a brain injury?
Yeah.
Some of the scary shit. Like, to me, it's really existential, and that's what the movie does quite well. It really, really makes you think about stuff in that sense. It's like, wait, Hal, who's the better figure here?
Yeah,
who's the person who deserves to live here?
Yeah.
And actually think about that shit.
Like, again, on the one hand, I understand why Dave would do it.
No, yeah, totally get it. But that's not the point.
The
point is that if you're going to make this quote-unquote objective argument, Hal kind of right? He's kind of the hero of the story, maybe? Not sure, right? But because he's just a dot, with a red dot looking at the camera, you don't sympathize with it.
Exactly.
And it's whether or not you play to those bias audiences.
Yeah.
Another thing about Kubrick, and this is a general sci-fi author problem, is that I would say Kubrick's quote-unquote weakness of a filmmaker, if it's anything he's weak at, is, and Nolan kind of has the same problem.
Or
he don't get
characterization.
He doesn't get people. So that's why he had to do projects like that. Because when it comes to like actual emotion or something that has strong emotional character growth and complex, I doubt Kubrick would have been able to do that shit. Right? Kubrick works in extreme absurdities, right? Extreme logic. And 2001 was like, to me, Taylor fit this dude. I don't know anybody who's criticized his take on 2001. I've not met a single person who makes that.
I more see like he treats characters like chess pieces because he loves chess.
Exactly.
So it's more like, all right, character.
Yeah.
And
he himself as a filmmaker has a very mechanical mind.
Yes, he does.
Now, in retrospect, some people might say he was on the spectrum, maybe, or something along those lines. Not sure. But he's a guy who really, I think he didn't really get people in that sense, and so that's why the films came out like this. They're brilliant, but they're math brilliant.
Yeah,
they're not human brilliant.
Maybe well, just to segue there for a bit. I remember when you see documentary where you talk about A Clockwork Orange, right?
Yeah.
Malcolm McDowell had so much fun working with him and everything like that, but then afterwards it's just like, well, how come you call me for next project?
nothing.
So I was like, yeah, I needed you to
For this,
to win this game here.
Yeah.
But now I don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
Game done, you know? And that's kind of sad.
Yeah,
when you
it's
think
a
about it,
little disturbing and fucked up in its own way. I mean, that's so. Anyway, just wrap up.
Right. So now we get to the final vignettes, right?
Yeah.
And arguably the most enigmatic section, which is Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite. I love that title.
Yes.
So after Dave learns about this the presence of this monolith in Jupiter,
Yeah.
so it's based off the beacon that was sent from
Right.
the moon years ago.
Yeah.
So this whole thing basically plays like a silent film, right? So in a way, kind of goes back to the dawn of man, except we're not hearing any guttural sounds, or whatever, right? But it's just mostly music and silence, right? And was like just visually, you see the monolith kind of appears when there's like a alignment of the planets.
Right.
So I'm assuming that so every time there's an alignment, the monolith shows up, and then some big evolution takes place.
So I just look at it as just kind of stepping stones for the supposed creators or whoever the designers are.
I mean, it's just the convenience of it all. It can't just be
but that's
like
the point.
random.
But
It has to be at an event.
They just kind of like whoever the people who build the monolith, whoever they are, so these super advanced aliens, right?
Yeah.
They just gotta work in. Again, you could get into this big debate about determinism now.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh well, we just expect. This is like we watching all this, like watching plants grow something. You know, we just seeing you play out because from our perspective, you're just like you're so simple that you have no freedom in this situation, right?
Yeah.
You have freedom only with that level, but you don't have freedom in the grander scheme. We have freedom, or we kind of have freedom in that sense, and that's
So kind of like Neo and the Architect.
a little bit, it has a little bit right. That whole planning.
Yeah, you think you're in control.
No, right, exactly.
You that.
That's what it was. So it's like, okay, apes, you're kind of smart. All right, like put this, let us stick our finger, God sticking his finger into the universe. Okay, make you a little smarter. Then you reach this level with the moon, wake you up a little bit.
Next step.
Next step, right. We just crank up it a little bit, and then when you reach to Jupiter, crank it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Artistic Clock also references this thing I like, which is do not go to Europa. I think that's the old line. I forget where this. I think it's Clark who did that. If somebody can remember, because I haven't read these books in such a long time.
Okay.
I think it's do not go to Europa because the whole point is the implication is that life is also there, and they don't want humans fucking that up. That's the and well, there's a lot of evidence that the Europa. Again, this is real cosmological understanding and discovery. That I think Europa, has water.
Right.
Or something along the lines. It's just too cool. Or it has something along the lines. Or I think it's methane oceans or something like that, where early life could have evolved, quote unquote. That's a big part of this too. The advent and rise of the theory of evolution in popular culture. Because again, scientists and people always had these arguments in education, but in popular culture, it's something that never took off. Right. It was still 6,000 years ago stuff, right?
Yeah.
And nope, this movie does boom, slam that in your face.
Now, something just little nitpick, right?
Yeah.
It's easy for people to say, well, it's a psychedelic movie and you need to get high to watch that.
No.
But my argument is that all the weird shit basically happens at that third act, basically. So it's like what? You just have to stay normal, and then when that sequence come, you had to
that's something I always hate. This one you had to get high to enjoy bullshit. No.
Yeah, not for a movie like this, man.
It's the exact opposite. Is that this movie does it for you.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that shit. The whole point is that you can just sit, soda and popcorn, and you're fine. We're going to take you on this trip. One of the reasons that, even though I don't think he's that great of a filmmaker, the other person I like referencing when it comes to the whole getting people high without getting people high is Alejandro Jodorowsky. Same shit. Hey, again high, but I didn't really take anything. So how come what going on here? It's the same thing.
Yeah. Right. So why I say that now is because Kubrick, boy, that man was just like holding back. It's like, I have an ace, and then he drop it, boom, with that Stargate sequence, which is done through slit scan photography. It's like an experimental technique that he used.
At the time,
Yeah. But to this day, it's still one of the most incredible things I have ever seen in my life. People have tried to replicate it, but nothing could beat the original.
Right.
My God,
that's why the movie Interstellar disappointed me, because like visually the final sequence works so well, and I was watching that shit, and I was like, Dread, if this man wasn't fucking talking all the time,
yes,
it would be so good, because it really got into that fractal that last sequence in Interstellar,
Yeah.
the fractal whole, everything folding on itself stuff, which
Which look awesome,
so
anyway.
awesome, amazing. I was like, Jared, why does man have to be fucking talking all the time, Jared? This dumb
Because he thinks
conversation.
the audience is stupid and
That
they
is
won't
the pro- and it's
understand
like
it.
Nolan, but and I think Nolan is a man who don't need to do that shit. Like, dog, we already trust you. We already trust you.
Yeah.
You don't need to. You don't need to.
Dude, you gave us Inception, Jay. We
Thank
trust you, bro. We
Thank
trust
you.
you.
We already trust your brother, and he could have just. It was really a frustrating moment for me because
Yeah.
a movie I really I genuinely liked, but it could have gone from like to absolute masterpiece.
Like I always say, the man was reaching for that 2001 level.
Yeah, and we
and
could
it's
have
like,
gotten that.
nah, boy, but the studios and them, boy, they just drop
fuck the
back down
studios,
to the
man.
chat.
But I don't
yeah.
know what happened. Like I don't think, but at no point I look at that as a decision he made. I don't know what happened. It could have been a decision he made. Look, I ain't saying no. Nolan is not some god or something. He could have fucked it up legit. That's his fault.
True.
But it just feel like something that he could have just get Cooper to shut the fuck up and just get what's the other guy? The AI Vance? I forget the AI. The other blocky. Right.
Oh, that guy, that character, that
Yeah,
AI,
I
right.
forget the AI's name. Whatever, it'll come to me.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But that is probably one of the most bizarre, most visually spectacular things ever put to celluloid. I love this, right? It's the stuff that acid trips are made of, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. But to me, I was always wondering with that sequence alone, is this like the birth of the universe? It's like rebirth? It's like just this transition to whatever it is?
You don't know. And
I don't know.
that's what I like about that. You look, this is when it's time for your brain to you had to do the hard work.
And I'm just going out of my way. Right? This is just my little speculation.
Yeah.
The design of the Discovery One ship, right?
Spoon. Yeah, obvious.
Sperm with his what?
Sperm.
Because there's literally a shot, right,
Yeah,
which
sperm.
looks like a sperm is going into.
Yeah,
like
sperm.
I was like, what?
Straight up spoon. I know.
I can't be the only one who pick up on this shit, though.
It's an easy visual take to an easy visual interpretation.
Yeah.
So
that's what I was thinking. Is this the birth or rebirth?
that's your
is
point.
David
That's
part
why-
of it?
That's
or
why
what?
that's why I kind of got from all of that when you saw the Star Trial. It's like, okay, this is what it is.
Yeah.
The end point is, okay, it's just another level of human evolution.
Yes.
You don't know where it's going. You're not sure, but it don't matter. This is just the logical end point of this. But the sperm thing, I thought this is an easy, obvious take. I have no idea. I don't know anybody who denies that necessarily.
Yeah.
But to me, it's the obvious take.
Yeah.
It's not something brilliant to say. It looking like a damn sperm.
Right. So a couple more notes I have. Right. So the use of the interiors during the final sequence, right, where David comes out and he sees himself old, and then he this great excellent shot, which by the way was Kaya's idea, which was if the character looks left and sees himself looking that way, the next shot will be that person there,
Yes.
and they just keep doing that transitions. The glass falls, he picks up, he looks, and then he sees himself on the bed. Next shot is him on the bed, right?
Yeah.
Great way of showing age, right? Because he gets old and then eventually he dies, right? But what was interesting though, to see it again was the interior itself. Like it looks like this like really fancy, expensive looking house there.
Yeah.
So I tell myself, okay, well maybe this is Kubrick saying, all right, in life we all want to attain wealth, and maybe we will attain it, maybe we won't at the end of the day. It doesn't matter because we do get old and die.
Okay, so
Here we
here's
go.
the question with this. This just happened to be at the same time where J. Paul Getty was kind of right.
Oh, right. All the money in the
I
world.
always felt that was Getty. Like that was the subtext for that. At the time, I was like, is this something about Getty? Because Getty was a bad dude. Like when they check back, he was kind of a shitty person. So it was like, oh, well, you make all this fucking money, but it don't matter. Sci-fi said so, and the universe says so. That kind of shit. I don't know. That's just how I felt with that. Because the old guy interpretation thing was interesting.
Yeah. And also, like, just to use a quote from another favorite movie of mine, which I also saw for the first time on TV6, Conan the Barbarian.
Right.
Max von Sydow said, when the throne room feels like a prison.
Yes, right.
So it's almost like, yes, I have this mansion,
But
but
it's right.
it
It's
feels
about
like
price, yeah.
it feels like a prison here.
Yeah.
He can't escape it because he's old. What more is there for him to do, right?
Yeah.
So yes, he gets old and he dies, and then the next evolution is him being the Star Child, and
Yes.
then of course we get the final shot of the Star Child more or less facing Earth.
Yes.
And I don't know, like we could easily assume that okay, this is the next evolution of this next evolution to occur in the universe?
Yeah.
Is this the death of man? Is this man becoming a planet, which was something I think Arthur C. Clarke was hinting at that would happen one day? You know, that kind of thing. But that's the last thing I'll say about C. Clarke himself.
Right.
So for him, he always regarded the future as unknowable, and this movie kind of really depicted that now, where this could be the possibility, but we don't know. Maybe, you know.
Well,
and it just kind of ends like that. I think the ending works. I think the ending is powerful
because
as is
science fiction,
but still, it just has a air of mystery, which I think works.
Like all good literature, including science fiction, is more mirroring to your own mind too. Like what you think things should or could be like.
Yes.
Not because it's not only the could. The could is just bullshit. Like as I say, if you think this is what this is going to be, you're an idiot. Yeah. Right? However, when you put this forward and you say this is what it should be, that's really fascinating in its own way. And some people get it right, some people get it dead wrong, but it doesn't matter. The idea is to say what it is you think the world should be like, or how we should just go forward. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be on a moral level, it could be an ethical level. It could boil down to something more legitimate like policy, public policy. Where's the world going? Where's humanity going in general?
Yeah.
And
we're going to get touch on that though, because for me, sorry to cut you there, but for me, how I see this film is that yes, it has air of darkness towards it, especially with the future as far as that's concerned. But I think it is actually kind of optimistic as well too, because yes, eventually we all will die, but life will go on, or something will happen. There is. It's
what you're right. It's what you want to make of. You really want to make of that. I do get.
So it has a kind of optimistic vibe.
It's one of the right. So as I say, one of the things I like about science fiction. Science fiction is one of the. A lot of people don't get this, but science fiction is actually one genre that makes. I will repeat myself. Makes into consilience what you call science and the humanities. The idea of this separation of cultures in the intellectual world and in the academic world is bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Science and humanities is one and the same. In fact, humanities used to be called, in German, Geisteswissenschaft. Spirit science, right? The science of the soul, what we call the soul. Soul is not this immaterial magic thing, it's just what humans are. What are we? Just a bunch of muscles? Do we have an actual soul itself? Maybe. Do we have so and so on? And everybody could get into these debates about that and back and forth. And why this film is, again, one of the reasons why it's a big prototypical sci-fi. Because it just covers all of that shit.
Yeah.
In a handful of hours.
It does. And even for me who wouldn't know all the theories or that kind of stuff.
That's the important part.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
You can still enjoy it just as a visual feast.
That's a sign of just good science
or
fiction.
Thematic or emotional, because once again the use of music just hits you at an emotional level. Because like the same stuff I was talking about with Haywood and with David and Frank, the human characters and how detached they seem to be from humanity. That's a really emotional thing about the movie that really struck me. Yeah.
And so just my last point on this movie. This movie is just, for me, it's really, really groundbreaking. It's not a film I love, I'll admit.
Right.
It's not a film I can say, I want to just sit down and watch this.
No, you had to be in a mood to watch this.
It's not, and because there's a lot of other contemplative things I think about that's not this film. But for the time, and when I was a teenager and a kid, it was that movie for me in a sense.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find it on VHS, so I couldn't watch it at any time. I caught it on TV6, caught it years later. Then eventually I got it on your VHS and you look for the tape and whatnot. VHS was a thing.
Yeah.
But it's a movie that really, to me, totally holds up concept-wise. For its time, a lot of old sci-fi is like fucking around and bullshitting and just terrible when you check back. But this, that's a reason why it's a classic, boy.
Of course.
As I say, the quote-unquote really that good. It is really that good.
50 years later, this movie still holds up. I'm not saying like I was born in 1968, but I mean, just everything about it was just the sheer magnitude of the ambition in this movie, boy, from set design to the use of classical music, which have never been done before in this level. The directing by Stanley Kubrick himself. Yeah. The script, for better or for worse, which is more visual than actual dialogue. Right. Let's admit that. Just the use of practical effects, the use of visual effects at the time, which still kind of blows today's movies to shame, but at the same time kind of inspires modern VFX artists to do stuff, Right. And I mean, not more we could say about that. This is a timeless movie, 5 out of 5 stars, one of the greatest movies of all time. Yeah. And I do agree with you, it's not my favorite movie of all time. It still belongs to Clockwork Orange. I can watch it any day, anytime, anywhere. And it's subject of Clockwork Orange. And this is like a true testament to the author Terry herself. That one shot of Alex in the record store, You see the 2001 soundtrack. It's like,
Right.
holy shit, look at
Yeah.
there. Get it? Yes.